Imagine you woke up tomorrow and you found out that your memories were surgically implanted yesterday into your brain. Would you still be you? Would it even matter? Questions like these have interested philosophers for thousands of years. So I'm actually going to go over what philosophy is and some of my favorite thought experiments that is encompassed inside of philosophy. So what is philosophy? That's kind of a difficult question. There are a lot of different categories. There's metaphysics, there's morals, there's many different individual studies that are involved in the entirety of philosophy. But philosophy itself breaks down to the love of wisdom, which is what it essentially comes down to, is you're trying to beat the accumulation of wisdom that you would accrue in your normal life through trying to constantly think and have insights that could help you in life rather than just the knowledge itself. It's more just insightful thinking. But like I said, there's a lot of different parts inside that. There's metaphysics, there's morals, people just think for the point of thought. You want to question everything, which is something that Friedrich Nietzsche thought intensely, which eventually I'll make a video on most every philosopher that I think is significant enough to bring up. But question absolutely everything, because if you don't, then you really don't know if it's true. Like, people for thousands of years believe things that ultimately ended up not being true. So you should continue to question absolutely everything. As much as I think flat earth is silly, I respect them trying to go about it. I just think they should educate themselves about the topics that they are disputing first before getting into it. And if you do so, you'll eventually be convinced. I think it's typically a lack of knowledge thing. But that's generally what philosophy is. A lot of people go through different avenues of researching, so you can go through school. I don't understand how that works at all because I do not have any college education. But you can go through thought experiments yourself. If you think deeply enough, you can create a nice framework that works for life itself. That's how a lot of these original philosophers really did it. It's quite incredible how they came and formed a framework that just is incredible. Kant is a big one that really comes to mind because his frameworks were absolutely intense, and the level of his speech is just so difficult. The way he defines certain words just makes it really difficult to comprehend. Another way you can go about it is reading different philosophers. Like, I have a bookcase of different philosophers, and they all think in different ways, and you kind of pick and choose ways that they put ideas into words that you may pick up on and like. Wittgenstein says, which is another philosopher, he says in one of his books, I don't remember which one, that this book will only matter to you if you already believe that is what that is written in it, because it's kind of just him putting it into different words of the thing that you likely already believe. You just don't know that you don't believe it yet. Philosophy can get pretty deep. I'm going to try not to ramble on too much, but I'd like to bring on 3 pretty popular ideas in philosophy and go over them. One is the Boltzmann brain, or the brain in a vat. And it's the idea that everything you see here is much less likely to occur than just a random assortment of atoms that would create a brain with memories and functions out in outer space. And there is no possible way that you would know that you are currently living versus the brain that is floating in space, because all your memories are in the past, and that's everything you've ever known, and they were just happened to be placed in that specific order atomically to create those memories. And if you continue, you might just disappear into oblivion. It's a pretty interesting thought. The only if you think about the current moment, there's no real way to dispute it. Because thoughts and memories are the only real thing that you have to prove that this is real. And then a brain in the vat is kind of the same situation. You wouldn't know, it's still surgical. They implant memories and they control the synapses and neurons in a way that you think you're completely real. And it's something really interesting to think about, that you could just be a brain floating in space, and it could work the exact same way than how it's currently working in your life right now. Another one is Plato's Cave, which is, I think, a pretty good intro into philosophy itself, because the idea is pretty interesting. So the idea goes that there are prisoners chained to a wall that are in a cave, and they can see a wall, and they can only see that wall. This shapes their reality. Everything that they see on this wall shapes all their belief systems, everything that they see, everything that comes in all their senses. Now, you have people on the opening of the cave. You can't see the opening from the chains, but they can cast shadows onto this wall. And they can just manipulate their belief systems completely by doing whatever they want with that shadow. They can block the cave to make them think it's dark. They can make puppets to make them think certain situations happened. And you can think of this in a lot of different ways, but this is kind of how life itself works. Because you don't see anything, your brain gets a wavelength of light shot into your retina, in which your brain controls and turns into information. Same with sound, it's just a vibration. Reality is not anything like what we actually sense. Our brain is controlling all of that. And Plato's Cave, I think, is a similar comparison to that, especially when you add emotion into it, because emotion controls significantly how something is going, how the situation is turning out, especially when you're talking about relationships between people. Your emotions control reality for you. It's not objective reality, but it is your reality. And based on the fact that that's the only reality you're ever going to see, that is really reality to you. Another one, the third and final one that I want to go over is the Ship of Theseus. Either this or Plato's Cave is going to be the most popular one, but the Ship of Theseus is just, as a ship is used for, say, hundreds of years, it eventually has planks that go bad. You have to replace it. Different objects. I don't know too much about ships. Like, I'm not going to be able to explain the different objects too well, but eventually replace out all the parts, because it's just so old that you have to continuously, through all the battles that it has been through, and eventually replace every single part on that ship. Is that the same ship? None of the beginning parts that were on the original ship are on the new ship, or the old. It's a debate whether it's a new ship or an old ship, but none of the old parts are on the actual ship that is considered that same ship. So is it that same ship? A lot of people would say yeah, because it's just the continuity of the ship and the idea of it. Some would say no, because structurally it is completely different. Then there's a continuation of this. If you do think it's that same ship, continuatively, that was wild. But if you believe that is the original ship, what if you took all those planks that you took off and you had collected them throughout the years while you had replaced them, and you build a new ship with the used parts? Would that ship be the original ship? Would they both be the original ship? It's definitely something to ponder. And then a lot of people compare it to the human body, because as you move on through your life, your skin cells are all replaced. Every cell in your body is replaced. So are you really you? Obviously people change. Literally, physically, they are changing constantly. Most cells don't live more than a month, which is just ridiculous. So you are oftentimes the ship of Theseus. I think when you're talking about a person, though, you're usually referencing their consciousness, not just their body. And consciousness, unless you believe in like panpsychism where it like flows through you, consciousness is the result of the patterns that are in your brain formed by the neurons, axons, and synapses that are inside there. So I don't think you are a different person. But the ship of Theseus is kind of more difficult because it doesn't have that pattern of consciousness that a human does. So would you consider it the old ship, or would you consider it a new ship? I just kind of wanted to get into the get into a few philosophy ideas just to get it stirred up, kind of just introduce it into the channel. I think this could be some of the most interesting intellectual conversations that we have in the comments, because that just typically comes from philosophy. It is thought for thought's sake. So I think that would be really cool. If you have anything to say, I would love to see it in the comments. If you enjoyed, please like. Thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.